This is how hiring decisions really get made. So, if you've ever left an interview thinking this went really well, and then you somehow get rejected with zero explanation, even though you know you aced that interview, it's probably because how hiring decisions get made behind the scenes, it's a lot different and it's sometimes a little bit darker than what most career advice professionals are going to tell you. So this isn't theory. This is what I've seen in real life. So if you don't know me, I used to be a recruiter in the UK. So I've seen every part of hiring from top to bottom. I know how this works. I've seen it firsthand. And yeah, this is what actually happens when someone makes a hiring decision. So the main thing throughout everything I teach, and especially the interview stuff that I want you to remember, is hiring is emotional first and logical second. If you just remember that line, you're going to do so much better, especially when you get into interviews. So what I mean by this is a lot of the times, hiring managers will make an emotional decision. They'll make a hire based on an emotional decision, and then they will justify it with logic, things like your metrics and your achievements and your experience. So what I want for you guys is I want the hiring manager to make the emotional decision that you are the right fit for the job, and then use logic to justify it to everyone else to be like, oh yeah, Susan, I mean, she does have really good experience and she fits really well with the team, when it's really, I just really like Susan. So that's kind of the levels that I want you guys to get to. So even in technical roles, decisions tend to start emotionally first, and then they get justified logically. So behind closed doors, what a hiring manager might say to themselves or might communicate to other members of their team is, I just like them more. They just felt easier to work with, and I could just pitch them on the team. And the problem is, a lot of the times, people won't say this out loud because it's really uncomfortable. But the reality of this human psychology in general is that we want to be around people that we like, and it doesn't change in the hiring process. So when you go into interviews, I want you to really maximize these three. This is probably the most important thing that you're gonna kind of hear today about interviewing. But if we can just get these three ticked off, and I say the same to my clients, if we get these three ticked off, all of our experience and all of that will follow. But basically, what's going to happen is if we can get them to like us, if they feel as though we're going to be easy to work with, and they can picture us on the team, then what will happen is that we're going to hit them here emotionally first, and then they're going to justify the hiring decision with all of our metrics and our experience and our achievements. But they're going to justify that with logic second. That's it. So what a lot of us are doing is we're focusing on the logical first. So we're going into interviews with our star prepared answers, and we're explaining, oh, look, I'm a really good fit for the role. I've got all of these metrics. I've done all of these marketing campaigns, but we're neglecting the emotional. But that's in reverse because they make the decisions based on emotion first and logic second. So what I want you guys to do is optimize the making sure that you're hitting them emotionally and that that person can picture you on the team right here. And then that's it. You're going to do so much better. I remember there was something I read. It was literally today, but apparently I think it was Steve Jobs. One of his interview criteria was that he had to go out with a potential prospect or a potential employee, someone that was interviewing for a role, and then he would have a beer with them. And then based on the answers they would give to just generic conversational questions, that's how a lot of the hiring decisions were made for his company, which is really interesting. So basically, even someone like Steve Jobs, he only wanted people that he could picture on the team and felt easy to work with, and people that he liked. So that's what I want you guys to remember. Like, you have to be likable because hiring is emotional first. So moving on to what your resume is actually useful. I put resume. I mean, trying to get the American audience in here as well. But yeah, resume, CV, same thing. So if I ever use resumes and CVs can be used interchangeably. But yeah, resumes don't win jobs. They filter people out. So internally, what resumes or CVs are used for is just to eliminate risk and to confirm a baseline level of competence, which is what the ATS machines are there for as well, which we're going to talk about in later videos, and also reduce volume because otherwise they're going to end up interviewing the whole of London if they didn't have the kind of CVs to confirm that baseline competence. But what I want you to remember is once you're interviewing, the work of this CV is done. So what I mean by that is you're qualified for the role. You're good enough to do that role. All it is communication and presence, and then making sure that they can picture you on the team and you're likable and you feel easy to work with. Because a lot of people, once they get into the interview process, they start with the limiting beliefs where they thought, oh, what if I'm not experienced enough? Or what if I'm not qualified enough? Or what if I don't have this or that? You have enough to do that job, otherwise they would not have wasted the time to interview you. As you know, the job market is absolutely cooked. So they would not take the time to interview you if you weren't good enough to do that job. All it is about communication and presence. And I think the confusion comes from the fact that what you've probably had in the past is you've got to interview stages and hiring managers have turned around to tell you that you're not really experienced enough or you don't have this or that. A lot of the times, what that comes down to is more the fact that you didn't communicate your previous experience to a level where that hiring manager or the person interviewing you felt comfortable that you'd be able to live on that role on a long term. So I say that to say that it still does come back to a communication issue. Not all the times. Sometimes it is just that you don't have the experience, but most of the times it is still a communication issue. So number 3, coming down to the hiring manager's rule there. So this is really big because what we're going to do is we're going to get into the hiring manager psychology a little bit here. But hiring managers are afraid. So it's what they're afraid of is, as you can imagine, their job is to get the best fits for the roles. So the more times that they make incorrect decisions, the worse it looks for them. Then everyone's like, you're a really bad hiring manager because you're not getting the right people for the job. And before you know it, maybe they're in the job center along with us because they've lost their job as well. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of fear that's going on there. So their their mental state is a lot of the times one of fear when they're interviewing you. So a lot of the times you're scared about your interview. A lot of the times they're just as scared as you are because they sometimes can't really afford to get the hire wrong. So I want you to think of it like that. And what this means for you is a lot of people think that you need to be the best candidate. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You need to be the safest candidate to choose. So I want you to think of it like an investment. So imagine if we were going to make a financial investment and we had a choice between crypto and the stock market. With crypto, there's a potential for higher returns. I mean, we can make hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions. But then there's also the risk that we could also lose all of our money. With the stock market, the returns or the potential returns aren't necessarily as high, but then the chance of us losing our money, it's almost zero, really. So this is the same thing here. We essentially need to be the stock market because they need to feel like the chance of them losing if they hire us is as close to zero as possible. Be the stock market, don't be the crypto, and that's going to be your quote of 2026. Okay, moving down to what culture fit really means, and I have personal beef with this term. I hate this term. It makes me cringe. I hate this term so much. That's probably a video for another day. But culture fit, what it essentially means is that you communicate clearly and you feel predictable. But I think the easiest way to put it is how close are you to people that's going to be working on the team that you're trying to work on now? How similar are you to them? That's why I recommend when you get interviews, I want you to go on LinkedIn and I want you to stalk all of the people who are going to be on your target team. See what they get up to in their spare time, what they're posting about, who they're connected with, what they're interested in. Just get as much information as you can. Because then when you get into the interview process, you can essentially just mirror that as much as possible. And then if you can mirror that as much as possible, you're a culture fit already. That's great. And then bonus points as well. If you can get on their inside jokes, then you're gonna be their favorite. If you get their inside jokes, that's like the golden egg. You're gonna be their absolute favorite. You're gonna get the job in seconds. I promise you. So yeah, the mental reframe is basically that you just will get on with their team, and then you're gonna be easy to work with. And the more similar you can be to people already on the team, better it's gonna be for you. And then this is when the decision is actually made. So by the final interview, the decision is often already made mentally. So final stage interviews, most of the time, it's just going to be to make sure that you're not an absolute psychopath, or there's not something that they've missed about you in screening, and that you haven't just kind of blagged your way there. So it's going to be things like stakeholder alignments. You might meet directors and other really senior people in the company, and just general red flag checks. Sometimes you will be in the unfortunate situation where you get rejected, not necessarily because what you said in that final stage interview, but because you were the backup, which is a little bit dark. But I mean, it's just a game. But I remember I had a client, and what happened to him is he got to a final stage interview, and then his interview was only about 10 minutes long. And then as soon as he told me that, I knew he was the backup and he got rejected. So what had happened is most likely they had already decided to go with someone else before he even had his interview, but they didn't want to cancel the interview because it probably looked very unprofessional. But then I think having a 10-minute final interview looks unprofessional as well anyway. But that's just my take. So sometimes you were just the backup. If you are the backup, there's not really much you can do. It just charge it to the game, honestly. And why you rarely get feedback. So a lot of people will complain about this. And essentially it's just because giving honest feedback is quite awkward. It's legally risky as well. And as you can imagine, just from a general standpoint, it is a little bit difficult to just tell someone you didn't get the job because we don't really like you as a person. I mean, it's really hard to say that. Like, I wouldn't be able to say that if I'm being completely honest, transparent. And also, as well, it is legally risky. So, for example, if they reject you on a reason that's a little bit suspect, then that might kind of bring issues such as discrimination into it. And then there's always a chance that people might bring a case against them. So just to kind of keep themselves as safe as possible, what they do is they'll give very vague answers, which is why every single rejection email you ever get is the exact same. Oh, there was so much competition. Like, you were a great guy, you were a great girl, but there was just so much competition, man. You know how it is. So what you can do, I advise you look on the company website, and if there's anything else that comes up, you can send another application, go through this lengthy interview process again. Yeah, yeah. That's why it will sound the same. That's why. So don't take it personally. Just if you optimize your strategy in terms of your interviews and your application, you're going to be fine. Don't take it to heart, which is what I'm going to say here again. But what it means for you, this is all about being clear, credible, and just easy to choose. Understand the game and don't take rejection personally. Don't let it affect your future interviews. Whether you get rejected by 5, 10 interviews, bro, you're still that guy. You're still the boss girl. You're still whatever. Just keep that level of confidence. Thank you, guys.